Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Alere Treasury Experience. We're excited to have you joining us this afternoon. We are going to go ahead and go through a couple of reminders. Again, all attendees will be placed on mute. Any questions can be submitted via the chat to panelists or the Q&A throughout the presentation. We will leave a couple minutes for Q&A at the end. A recording of these sessions, as well as a copy of the PDF slides, will be available via a digital library following the event. This next session we have is one of our TMS partner sessions, 2021 Treasury Priorities, Immunizing and Digitizing Treasury, presented by FIS. Our presenters today are Steve Wiley and Sean McCarty. Steve is Vice President of Treasury Solutions for FIS, a global provider of treasury, risk, and payments technologies. Prior to joining FIS, Steve worked as a principal consultant at Treasury Strategies, where he provided consulting services to large corporations and financial institutions. Sean is an accomplished results-oriented treasury consultant and project manager with international expertise in cash management, payments, risk management, and treasury solutions. He has experience in investment management solutions, investment accounting, and client support as well. We welcome both Steve and Sean to the ETE stage, and passing it over to you, Steve.
Great, thanks Jordan, and thanks to Alere for hosting the conference. Welcome everybody to the session. In terms of an agenda, we'll start by introducing FIS Global for those of you who don't know FIS, talking about what FIS does and the technology we provide to help corporate treasurers. We'll then talk about 2020 challenges. We'll talk a little bit about what happened with COVID-19, how it forced Treasury to reprioritize the remainder of the year in terms of initiatives, including technological initiatives, and then we'll look forward into 2021. Kind of talking about what we're anticipating in terms of drivers for new projects and new technology, and we'll wrap up with an Integrity SaaS demonstration from Sean, which will be followed by a Q&A, though feel free to submit questions throughout, and if we see any relevant, we may pick those out during the session, or we may wait until after, so don't be shy. So for those of you who don't know FIS Global, it's Fidelity National Information Services. We're a publicly held company based in Jacksonville, employing about 55,000 people worldwide. We offer solutions in the corporate treasury, banking, and risk payment areas. FIS is one of the largest global providers of financial technology. To give you a sense of kind of the scale of our operations, FIS is facilitating the movement of roughly $9 trillion through the processing of about 75 billion transactions in service to more than 20,000 clients around the world. So with our acquisition of WorldPay last year, we are the largest payments processing company in the world. When it comes to treasury technology, FIS differs from other technological providers in that we serve both the banking and corporate market segments. So we offer business banking solutions to banks, which help banks serve their customers. So that could be your online banking portal or your payments portal. And then we're also offering on the left side here a full treasury management solution suite that we use to serve corporates directly, many of which are also Alere and Oracle clients. And so we'll be talking today and showing you a little bit of what we have going on there on the left-hand side. And in a little bit, Sean's going to show you the Integrity SaaS Treasury Management System, which is just one element of our corporate liquidity ecosystem that you see displayed here. FIS is unique from a treasury management perspective in that we're offering a full treasury, risk, messaging, and financial management suite, which are all in-house. So we're a provider of our own in-house Swift Service Bureau managed bank connectivity and messaging business. We have our own receivables solution, Get Paid, which is used for everything from cash application to predictive metrics for receivables, integrated payables, our own payments factory solution, Trax, and private cloud enterprise treasury management system called Quantum. Primary difference in Integrity and Quantum being that SaaS deployment. Integrity is that flagship SaaS solution. On the money market fund side, our own money market fund portal, SGN, which is used for short-term cash management purposes. And so all these systems talk and integrate with one another. And so it's common for us when we serve a corporate to really serve the full spectrum of CFO needs, including receivables, payables and treasury, though today we'll be focusing certainly on treasury. Just to add, before I move on, talking about kind of 2020 and 2021 trends, we are the longest tenured treasury management system provider, in the industry now at over 30 years, though FIS has been around for more than 50 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of Treasury and Treasury technology in 2020 using some data from an about to be published FIS Treasury study, which we just conducted over the summer and just completed. So we started this study after COVID and the global pandemic. So if you're interested in any of the data we see here, you'll be able to get that at some point when it's released over the next month from FIS Global online. But 2020 has been quite the year, to put it nicely. The pandemic was initially viewed as a short-term challenge for countries in the world economy as a whole, but we now know that isn't going to be the case. Most projections have indicated that some form of intermittent social distancing is going to be necessary through this year and into 2021, possibly longer. The lockdown has resulted in the greatest global economic downturn since the Great Depression, and even countries without really strict lockdowns are experiencing their worst economic conditions since 2008. And so, while the fact coronavirus, it's likely going to be around for some time longer, and maybe that's scary, that we feel like there's reason to be optimistic, especially when it comes to Treasury. When you look at these challenges here, they represent a spectrum of positive change and opportunity for corporate Treasury. Going forward, technology architectures, they're going to be modernized to better enable remote workers through cloud-based deployments. That remote enablement is going to make Treasury employees and departments much more flexible going forward when it comes to allowing work from home, people who prefer it or need it. Corporates are going to be much more well equipped to manage liquidity and working capital. We're seeing a huge increase in liquidity management and working capital centralization projects. We expect to see improved risk mitigation and process re-engineering on the FX, interest rate, and cyber risk side to help bulletproof Treasury from market volatility going forward. And lastly, we're expecting Treasury to reassess organizational structures. So it's been much easier for Treasury departments with globally centralized liquidity, payment, and risk functions to manage operations in the pandemic that it has for those that have been decentralized. So we're seeing a number of those initiatives as well. So the challenges that we talked about, they're giving rise to technology projects and Treasury transformation projects. When the pandemic became a reality, we as a technology provider, we were in new territory. We had never experienced anything like it. We weren't entirely certain what impact it would have on technology adoption. We suspected it would lead to an increase in technological adoption, but weren't sure to the degree. As it turned out, 2020 so far, it's been one of our busiest years, and one of the busiest years we've had on the technology side, and that includes Treasury. It also includes receivables and payments as well. So we're seeing a much greater number of technology improvement projects, many of those driven by those challenges you saw on the prior slide, and also the need to modernize antiquated technology. So these are evidenced in the chart you see here. We actually pulled treasurers, folks in receivables and payments as well, and the findings were pretty consistent. When we asked folks what their level of technological investment looked like over the next 12 months, it's pretty consistently 2/3 of respondents said there would be an increase in technological investment. So for companies planning to invest in digital technology, COVID-19 just has become a major driver. Corporates are looking for the latest in cloud-based technology that further automates the full spectrum of Treasury responsibilities, but also peripheral departments like AR and AP. In the past, in the past, there was a tendency for companies to adopt new technology in one specific area, such as Treasury receivables or payments. In 2021 and beyond, companies are going to be seeking to harness technology across multiple functional areas. A lot of that has to do with getting a better, more centralized view of working capital. The problem we immediately observed, and which arose pretty quickly at a number of corporates, as it related to working capital, is that most corporates' working capital management it was decentralized. It's making it much less flexible without dedicated technology to quickly make funding and capital structure decisions. So we're seeing much more many more centralization initiatives, which include the technology adoption with working capital elements, and certainly a reassessment of cash forecasts across the board. Historical data not so useful anymore. So seeing a huge tick in cash forecasting improvement projects, and it's similar to what we saw after the 2008 crisis, where corporates realized they needed to get a much better handle on cash forecasting in order to be able to better manage working capital and to make proper funding decisions. So, in terms of drivers for change, the pandemic it forced Treasury departments to take a hard look in the mirror. And when they did that, everyone saw something different in terms of issues. Thinking about technology as a whole, Treasury has reprioritized projects in alignment with demands from the business. Those technology priorities, they're associated with three general challenges: access, enablement, and mitigation. The first, and the one that needed addressing immediately, was access. One of the first questions treasurers asked themselves when the pandemic became a reality was what proportion of Treasury Department activities could be executed remotely, oftentimes from home. The higher proportion of tasks that could be done at home, the better. Those treasurers who could work effectively and remotely had likely already adopted cloud-based technology. Those treasurers with antiquated or on-prem technology architectures were or are likely already in the process of reevaluating their technological deployments. If your technology isn't working from home, it probably wasn't meant to be used from home. So you should be having a conversation with your technology vendor and IT department, or maybe consultant, and it may be that you have the right system itself, possibly the wrong deployment of that system. Moving on and talking about enablement, does Treasury have the right technology to efficiently do the blocking and tackling remotely? Can we mobilize liquidity and transact globally? For many, there's going to be a need to adopt new technology or modernize what you have. We've seen a lot of change needed on the liquidity side. Corporates who don't have really effective global multi-bank reporting in place, which has really compounded the working capital issue I mentioned. So I expect many others in the same boat. So we're seeing increased adoption for tools like SWIFT to standardize bank balance reporting and transaction processing globally. Thinking about mitigation, security controls, very high up here in terms of drivers for increasing investment. If your processes and technology are not fully digital, and by digital, I mean able to be executed remotely, but also securely, you're operating Treasury in an inherently riskier environment right now. So in conjunction with process reengineering changes, there's going to be a need to implement technology that further bulletproofs Treasury during these future outbreak scenarios, and that also means centralized views of other risk areas like FX and interest rate risk. And then kind of another consideration for Treasury is this idea of scale. More a longer term consideration, but I like to mention it. Do we have the right technology to centralize and scale Treasury globally? So, as I mentioned, the treasurers who are really struggling are those with decentralized processes, fragmented systems, heavy reliance on telephone or email for things like payment approval, cash concentration. In the new world, Treasury has got to have technology to allow for centralization, web-based reporting of all management needs related to reporting. So that includes cash positioning, FX, so that management can just make faster, more precise decisions fully remotely. So in summary, when we think about 2020 and 2021, and you're thinking about your own Treasury operation, and you're maybe taking that hard look in the mirror, I think it's helpful to frame your own capabilities today within each of those areas that I talked about: access, enablement, mitigation, and then thinking about scale. We just moving on, we'll be showing you a solution that many corporates are using to help navigate COVID-19 and many of the general challenges that have always existed for Treasury. Things like highly manual procedures placing a burden on Treasury staff, reliance on Microsoft Office or Excel for mission-critical Treasury functions, fragmented Treasury system environments, incomplete systemic controls or audit controls, lack of specialized IT and Treasury tech resources. Integrity SaaS addresses many of these challenges. It allows for greater automation in all key Treasury activities. It allows for that centralization of Treasury functions and reporting we talked about, greater systematic security and controls, and just an expanded analytical tool set for Treasury and risk management. So Integrity SaaS, it's used by corporates of all shapes and sizes everywhere around the world for everything from foundational cash management to complex risk management, including things like hedge accounting and in-house banking. It's also often used in conjunction with the solution suite I showed earlier, things like the money market fund portal or the Swift Service Bureau or Get Paid on the receivable side. The solution has been recognized in the past year by TMI, IDC, Global Finance as really the best treasury management system in the world when it comes to both the underlying cloud technology, excuse me, and functionality. And it's FIS Global's fastest growing solution within our entire corporate liquidity solution stack, and one of the fastest growing technology treasury management solutions in the world. And we've got a really strong network of partners. Alir, of course, being one. And so, without further ado, I think I'll hand it over to Sean, who will be giving you an overview of the system. So I'm going to stop sharing now, Sean. And you can go ahead and now share. I've just stopped.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, I'm going to get my screen sharing going. Hi, everybody. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Thank you all for taking your time today to join with us. So, and a lot of the challenges that Steve was just hinting at, the need for automation, better communication, spreadsheets, a lot of that has been amplified by COVID-19, but so many of those things existed before that, and those are really a lot of the challenges that treasurers have dealt with. And so really what we're going to look at here is kind of how all of that can be streamlined and how everything can be put into one place for you just to make things a little bit easier. So imagine if I present you a scenario here, just thinking, when you come in each morning, how many different applications do you need to open up? Whether that's Microsoft Office, various websites for different banking portals, or any other application that you have, how much time do you need to spend opening up all those applications, getting all the data ready, and finally saying, okay, now that I've got all 10 of those things open, now I'm ready to get going for the day. So just imagine in a world where you didn't have to do any of that, and it's already in one place as soon as you log on. I know that struggle. I've dealt with that before. So when you log into Integrity and look at one of the dashboards here, that's removing all of that part of your day. So what you see here in these various charts and graphs and other notifications here, these are all the data points that you can get reporting into the system. So think of things that we see here, like your available funds, and I'll just go a little bit counterclockwise here around these different charts. Bank balance by entity, cash available at each bank, currency balances, and then the overdrawn accounts. But you also have things up here like online notifications from missing forecasts, pending payments. So a lot of the challenges that you may be dealing with in terms of communication and just having full awareness of what's going on, and a lot of that can be achieved right here in these dashboards. So before we move on, I just want to familiarize you with a term that we have here called workspaces. What a workspace really is, it allows you to detail your workflow for the day And it really helps for having a role-based security within the system here. So put yourself in the shoes of a cash manager and say, I know what my daily workflow is of the day. I'm coming in, I need to check my balances. We need to reconcile our previous day position. We need to position our current cash for the day and make any funding or investing decisions. Okay, so how can I set all of that up in one area? Well, and that's what a workspace within Integrity is going to do. It's give you that opportunity to put your workflow into one place without having to move across different screens. So what you see here, these tabs here are all active, which will take you to a different part of the system in order to go through your daily workflow. And it takes away that need to navigate from screen to screen or worry about how to get to one place or another. And it's kind of a way to get rid of, I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with the situation where you have specific spreadsheets that you're working with and one person built it and maintains it and nobody else really knows how to update it. So when that person's not there or when something doesn't work inside that spreadsheet, you're already looking around for help. And in today's world where most of us are working remotely, you don't really have the opportunity to go over to that person's desk and ask them for help. So, and the reason for that story is all that data, all those details can be brought in here. And these dashboards and these charts can be configured, by the user. And all of these come out of the box. So what you see here, you can have a dashboard that looks like this, but you can also take different charts and copy them and put different details in there. And we'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. So what we're going to do is just kind of go through a little bit of the screens here and go through the workflow within the system here, just to give you an idea of sorts, kind of what we're looking at here. Before I move along, you can also drill down into anything that you see on a dashboard. So any chart with a double click, you can bring up to the full screen view. And then a quick double click will send you right back to the regular view. And likewise, if you have a chart that looks like this with a particular legend available, you can toggle on or off what you're looking at. So this chart is showing us Euro, British pound, and US dollar. But suppose I just want to toggle off the US dollar. So some of these charts can be interactive. Now you're looking at something that's just giving you the Euro and British pound. And we can toggle some of those on, off, and so forth. So one of the big issues that we're all encountering is how to get the data. And if you're using spreadsheets and you're undertaking a lot of manual intervention, you're likely logging on to banking portals, pulling your details and putting it into a spreadsheet in some meaningful way. But also maybe you wrote a macro or you're doing something else in order to parse that data out. So the key here is that Integrity will communicate with your different banking partners. Your prior day data and your intraday data can all be brought in and updated within the system. So if we look back on this original dashboard here, this is all updated by the prior day banking information. Once that comes in, you're getting all of your balance information displayed here. So these charts update in real time as information comes in. There's no manual update required, no running of a service in the background to make sure that these are updating. And users can maintain the different schedule of services that are running. So the reason I show you this screen here is you can control the timing of any banking job or any other job as well. So this could be importing of market data, forecasted data, outgoing payment files. So if I just click on one of these, what you can set up is some kind of notification here. And let's say in this scenario of what I'm highlighting. So anytime this Citibank prior day statement import runs, an email group called Cash Management will be notified. And that's really important, is to get those notifications out. Because a lot of times, and I dealt with this a lot in my years of working in client support and professional services, is just a lot of users are not aware of what's happening and they don't know the notifications. Did this bank statement come in? Did that payment go out? And they just don't know. So the best way to circumvent that is to make sure that all these notifications are set up and that each user can look at and control as long as they have access to each of these scheduled jobs. And that's just to make sure everyone is on the same page with what's going on. And the schedule can be updated as well if this particular bank may be coming in later or it needs to come in earlier. Same with forecasted data. So it's all at the discretion of any of your users. So if we're moving along and all of your banking data is now in the system, and you know this because of all the notifications you received, now we're ready to get set and reconcile our positions. So if we come over to the reconciliation tab, this is showing us an account reconciliation screen. And what it's doing here is just automatically parsing your bank statement data and accounting for everything that occurred in the previous day. But it's also going to give you any exceptions to make sure that you can properly account for them as they come in. And just real quick, I'll bring up an email notification. So this is something that you can get sent out to any person in your organization. It doesn't have to be a system user. Any report can be mailed out. And this is just an example of a bank reconciliation report. So we'll go ahead and just open this real quick. I just wanted to give you an idea of what you can see here. So before you even come in, before you even sit down, even before you even launch the application, you can have an email sitting out there. You open this up and says, okay, wait a minute. I know that we have an exception, and it will give us the account number and the amount. So you can say, okay, incoming wire with that reference text in that amount, what is that? You can already get ahead of things and find out, what this transaction may represent. So by the time you do launch the application, you're ready to complete your reconciliation. You know what that transaction is. So the point being that you can get all sorts of proactive notifications. So you're not finding out the information when you log in. You're seeing it there visually, but you've already been notified of things that have happened. And if I just toggle over here real quick to the reconciled view, just to give you a picture here, all the data that came in on the previous day bank statement will either be matched or a transaction can be generated based on that transaction as it comes in. And you can click on anything to find out the forecasted amount and the subsequent bank transaction that matched with it. And all this occurs automatically before you come in. And a lot of folks might be doing this manually right now, or at least some versions of this manually. But you can set this up so it becomes an automated process for you. That occurs before you even sit down. So we'll navigate over here now to the cash worksheet. And just everybody to notice, I haven't left the screen here. I haven't navigated away from things. I'm still in the same workspace that I started with, just moving across different tabs as my workflow dictates. So we're taking a look at the cash worksheet, but we can also set up different views to look at a particular day that we would like. So the cash worksheet, the idea is for you to be able to forecast your closing balance of the current day. Now I've toggled back to the prior day view to give you a quick glimpse at what you can do just to tie out your prior day balances, and also check on the actual data that came from the bank in a quick side-by-side view with that forecasted data as well. So you can always go back in time and say to yourself, well, we know what happened. We know what we forecasted. Let me just get a very quick view of the difference between the two, perform some quick variance analysis. So just a couple things on the cash worksheet here. It's very flexible. These transactional groupings here are user defined based on the activity that you have today. And a lot of times, if you're positioning your cash now in an Excel worksheet, and we'll try to incorporate that into Integrity here to make sure that we can match the way that you're doing things now in terms of those transactional categories. But the nice thing here is that you're not reliant on multiple sheets, waiting on communication from others. And let's say, okay, well, we know our subsidiaries we're waiting on them to send us over their cash numbers right now. And so I haven't incorporated that into our full cash position. But you don't need to do that here, because once that bank data comes in, it's automatically filtered here into the worksheet. And just down here on the left-hand side, these bank account groupings are user-defined. So think about how you're positioning your cash today and how you might be viewing it. Are you doing a full consolidated view across the company? Or maybe you're breaking things down by country or division or business line, or looking at your different positions by currency. So you can really group your bank accounts any way that you would like and quickly toggle back and forth between the 2 or 3 or however many that you have. So now I'll go ahead and get to the current day view as I was looking at prior day. So on the current day view, the system will also incorporate your target balance to really help you make sure you're positioning your cash properly, making sure you have any buffers in place, just in case you have to fund any accounts or make any other decisions with that cash for the day. There's a couple different ways, okay, to view the information here. Looking at it by category here, now if I flip over, we can look at each bank account as a separate line item as it's in this particular account grouping. And one of the other things that you can do here is you can set up auto funding, cash pooling, or even do some overnight investing or borrowing, depending on what your ending cash position for the day is. And so let's just say, for example, that you need to transfer cash from one account to another, as part of your cash pool, or just some intercompany funding. And just like that, it's done. We have a new cash transfer generated. Payment details are set. And if we jump back over to our home screen, we see that we have a pending payment ready for us. So the point being, the activity that you perform within Integrity updates on all the different screens, and you get those online notifications to be certain of what's happening. Okay. So kind of now you thought about, coming in, you've reconciled your positions for the day. You've looked at your current day cash. You've got all your accounts properly positioned. You've done any proper funding you need to do. Any borrowing, any cash pooling is done. So maybe now you just want to go ahead and take a look at what your liquidity is going to look like for the upcoming week, the upcoming month, and so forth. So within this one screen here, and this operates a lot like the cash worksheet. So think about how you're looking at your future cash flows now. What types of forecasting do you do? And it all can flow in right here to this liquidity screen. I've got a couple different views set up here. So why don't we take a look at just a couple of these just to see what you can do here. So just kind of thinking about managing your working capital, I've got a viewpoint set up here called the weekly outlook. So what you can do here is you can set your date buckets and how you would like to report those. So in this case, we're looking outbound up to 1 week, and we're going in day-long buckets. And it's going to give you your projected closing balance at the end of each of those days, so you can properly plan for the upcoming week. But it's not just that. You can toggle to different views that you've created as well. So I can look at this view here. Now we're going out until the end of the month and looking at in week-long buckets. And same thing here, quick toggling, and you can go out to a longer term forecast as well. So in all likelihood, a lot of this is occurring within spreadsheets. You're relying on too many different data sources that have to be manually sent over. And if you're chasing folks on your side to get you some numbers, and then worrying about, oh, now I only have a couple minutes left to incorporate this into the forecast that's due later today. So this here will circumvent, those communication issues, because we know it can be very tough, especially working virtually. But different users can submit their own forecasts, whether that's manually bringing them in by some sort of import, or even cash flows that are generated in other parts of the system automatically comes through into the liquidity screen here. And that way you can be certain when your forecast is updated. And if we flip back here, you can get an online notification of how many forecasts you're still waiting for. So without having to get on email and say, where's the forecast? You can certainly go ahead and look at the online notification and say, okay, I know there's 4 missing. We know the deadline, and you would know whose forecasts are still outstanding. Okay, just a quick check on the time just to make sure that we're at a good pace here. Okay. So one of the other things that we wanted to just go through here, just to make sure you had a good feel for the system and just kind of walking through the daily activities here, I wanted to show you, if I expand the menu here, some more of the options. So all of this here that you see on the left-hand side of the screen are different workspaces. So these can be generated by your own users, just depending on what their role is in the system and within your organization. And really, if you're using particular modules, you might set up different favorites that you have along here. So I've got things like daily cash, debt and investments, liquidity planning, FX risk, and so forth. And then the idea is for you to generate your own workflow in each of those categories. So if I were to click on something like debt and investments, and I've got the tab open up here, but we'll just open another one so you see what happens when we click on a different workspace, just to give you an idea of what something other than daily cash looks like. So now if you see the screen here, we're looking at a different dashboard, and this is all about short-term debt on this screen. And as we go through, think of one of your users managing all of this within your system. And it just depends on the type of things that you have. I've got something here set up for short-term debt, and it goes by commercial paper, different contracts that are outstanding. So you can get some different reporting on the summary level, details, and even a maturity schedule down here to kind of help with your cash flow planning. And just scroll over a little bit here. We'll head into short-term investments. So for things here like money markets and commercial paper investments, so the system supports all sorts of transactions for debt and investing. And when I was putting this together, I focused on money markets and commercial paper. But you can also manage your credit facilities or any other types of short-term debt that you may have. And I'll skip some of these tabs if you kind of get the idea here. I have something here for long-term debt, for bonds. I'll click over here onto maturity profile. So you can set up different charts, different graphs to give you an idea of things that are happening here in your organization. So if I go ahead and click on maturity profile debt query here. So again, like I said before, these charts and these graphs, you can get the full screen view, and then you can drill down. So you say, okay, we have a summary level of maturities from 1 to 2 years out. Okay, but what's making up that amount? So you can drill down and see the different records that make up all of that. And with any of these charts, any of these graphs, you can add or subtract different data points as you need. So in this instance, maybe you don't need to know, or maybe you wouldn't necessarily need the counterparty if you didn't want the counterparty, or maybe you needed to add the bank account, or the particular bank account that this belongs to. So it's things like that you can add to some of these different charts, because the data is there. The data is within Integrity, and you're empowered to update these different charts as you would like. And I did want to carve out a couple of minutes just to walk through some of the reporting. And one of the things that I really wanted you to understand is that this reporting, and a lot of other vendors will set up the reports and walk away, in which case you're left to yourself for kind of figuring out how to update them, or you have to call for help. I need to update this particular chart and I don't know what to do. But not in this case here. There's no programming needed. You don't need to know SQL. You don't need IT support. So how do we get to the reporting? If we navigate over here to the menu and go into Analysis and Reporting, we'll bring this tab up here. So one of the things that we'll do quickly here is we'll update one of the dashboards. So if we just search in the box up here for the name of a report, but you can also use the drop-down menu and search for different reports. Now let's see. Does any of this look familiar? So you can access all different reports here. Anything from a chart, a graph, to a dashboard or a workspace. So if this looks familiar to everybody here, this is that first page we were on, right here. And this is something that you can edit right here. And all I did was bring up the report. So we'll go over here to edit. And now if you see the way that the screen came alive, all these charts and graphs, it's a basic drag and drop function here. So not only can we determine what we want on the different dashboards, but you can move things around as well. So, and a lot of times the presentation, the organization of things can be important to you. You could do something as simple as, I don't want bank balance by US entity in this part of the screen. I'd rather have it down here. Or let's say I want it moved over here. And now you can save that. And those two different charts have been moved around. It could be something as simple as that. However, we can also, if we click on Add, you'll get this box that comes up for adding a new reporting widget. What I'm going to do here is bring up a chart here called Bank Balance by Country. So what I'll do is the new chart will just appear here in a box that you can now move around and determine where you would like it to go. So let's just say for the sake of argument here that we're getting rid of cash available by bank. We click the X and now that's gone. And now we can bring up bank balance by country and just drag it to the location that we would like and resize it and save. So if we come back here and this is the dashboard that we just edited. And thank you for bearing with me while I navigated through some things there. So just like that, you have a change to a dashboard. And really the idea there is your users can have the ability to do things like that without calling for help, without needing assistance from IT, because it is simple as dragging and dropping, pointing and clicking. And the same goes for a lot of these different charts as well. If I were to edit one of these, you can control the columns that are there. If you want to add columns, remove columns, you can even change the layout of those different charts. So we have just about a couple of minutes here until we would like to stop for the Q&A session. Do you want me to stop now? It's about 2:43, or do you want me to continue for a couple more minutes?
You could stop, Sean, because we're by my time we're almost at 45 after, and
right. And
I know we got a hard stop in 10 minutes. So.
Yes, exactly. And I don't want to take too much time.
Yep. Well, appreciate the demonstration, Sean. Jordan, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions that came through here. So first question, does Integrity integrate with Oracle and the Oracle Cloud?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Suspect we have a number of Oracle folks on the line here and Oracle users. So it's one of our most common integration points is with the ERP. We integrate, and we have plenty of existing Oracle customers who are integrating Integrity to Oracle or retrieving data from Oracle. The most common integration point is for Integrity SaaS to be used as a subledger to Oracle, meaning things like deals, cash items, bank statement items, will be managed and tracked within Integrity, and then fed on a scheduled basis using a job from Integrity SaaS to Oracle, which is then the system of record. So that's our most frequent integration point with Oracle and other ERPs as well. We also gather and exchange other data with Oracle as well. So we might gather AR data, for example, for cash forecasting. We're in the process of further formalizing the relationship with Oracle as it relates to the Oracle Cloud and the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. The vision for the partnership with Oracle is to be one that is complementary. So where Oracle continues to be used for those elements that clients use it for, and Integrity SaaS is able to add on this kind of treasury value layer. Really more maybe different, more complex reporting tools, maybe more complex dealing, scenario analysis, hedge accounting, things like that. So it's really a complementary functional separation, and we're in the process of continuing to work on that integration right now with Oracle products. So we have plenty of experience with Oracle. And are regularly working with mutual Oracle clients. Great question.
Awesome. And another one, a little more high level, but what are some common business case elements if a firm wanted to implement a TMS system like Integrity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a business case can be tricky, and it varies by company. I prefer and often recommend for corporates to partner with consultancies like Alir for things like a business case, because it allows for you to get a more thorough business case. But at a high level, there are kind of hard savings and soft savings. Soft savings relate to those things like labor savings. So maybe you save 2 hours a day positioning cash, and you can kind of redeploy resources to do something more strategic or analytical than operational, and that might cut across functions. So if we're automatically integrating deals into the ERP, that's going to save some accounting some time. If you're hosting a system in the cloud, it's going to be much different than an on-prem solution, right? You're going to have much less investment in IT resources. So there's kind of those soft elements, we call the soft saving areas, and that hard savings, right? So one example of a hard saving might be an improved mobilization of global cash. So an improved management of idle cash balances through greater visibility into maybe into all bank accounts. And so maybe improved management of idle balances and a better return on those investments. Maybe things like bank account administration. We have a bank account administration and bank fee analysis module. And common for us to see significant percentage reduction in bank fees using the bank fee analysis module. So that's one area where we often see cost savings, and we often see that area included in business cases. On the risk management side, often see improved FX exposure forecasting accuracy and the speed, quality of decision-making capabilities, which reduce overall earnings volatility related to foreign exchange fluctuations. So FX is going to be a huge business case and driver for Integrity SaaS projects here in 2020 and into 2021 as well. And so, every company is going to be different. You have to go in and kind of really perform a thorough gap analysis, function by function, to understand one, maybe where you're wasting your time, and two, where there's real opportunities for cost savings. There are other areas, like netting, in-house banking, maybe existing system decommissioning, right? So every business case is different. But I think going back to the original recommendation, I'd love to see a consultant involved there, especially if you're a practitioner who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with a business case. That's a great question.
Awesome. And another one that came in here. So for a global company looking to move to a cloud-hosted TMS, would all of their subsidiaries be able to access the solution under one instance, or would they have to purchase and implement multiple instances of the system?
No, it's the former. So Integrity SaaS is a fully SaaS-based solution. All you need is the web. All you need is the internet. So very common for us to see centralization initiatives, and we have very large global corporates who have regional treasury centers or local finance centers accessing the system remotely. So very common for us to have someone multiple different groups, accessing bank statements, communicating cash, entering payments. And so, quite common for us to see that. Because we are a global company, we have local support, in full coverage in the Americas, EMEAs, and Asia Pacific, in all of those developed countries. So we provide local support for those, and local in-language support for those decentralized users. But you all get to use the same system and no additional cost for any distributed or decentralized users. But that's a great question. Thanks, Jordan.
Excellent. And it looks like that's all the questions that we have for right now. A couple of quick reminders. First off, thank you to FIS for joining us today and for the demo. We are still having that Twitter engagement challenge with the hashtag ETE2020 on LinkedIn and Twitter, actually, and you're entered to win a $200 digital Amazon gift card. Our next session, Improving Treasury Management Through Data Analytics, begins in 9 minutes here. And the link for that session, if you haven't registered already, was just dropped in the chat. Thank you again for everyone joining, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great, thank you. Thanks, bye.